Could you
Oh,
just
hand
change
over.
slides? Or?
So, yeah, you could just that one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll hand over to Sandeep now.
Hello everyone, I'm Sandeep Batre and I'll be talking about network identity work. Coincidentally, it's going to be all about the Rainbow Family Tree project, and I had no idea we'd be using the same today. So yes, so if you ask me to condense what I've learned during my entire duration of communication studies into one sentence, this would be my response. Know your audience. And this is actually very important in the field of communications. But when it comes to networked identity work, knowing your stakeholders is as important. But first, it is important to establish a difference between what is a story and what is an identity. So a story is a snapshot-like representation in form of a cohesive narrative made, drawn out of an identity. So it suggests that it is a small component of a big whole. It usually comprises of a narrative structure, an overarching message, and a clear audience. An identity, on the other hand, is greater than the sum of its parts. It is fluid, constantly evolving, and co-created by stakeholders, family, friends, depends on the context. And identity over here may also refer to individual identity or group identity. So it is also important to establish in the beginning that network identity work is not networking. The process of networking usually is based on spontaneous interactions, which may result in some connection worth pursuing. It may happen in during any stage of project development, and inside informal settings as well. So there's a certain trajectory of project development from conception to pitching to investors and screenings and that kind of stuff. This is where networking usually happens. Network identity work is more complex, and broadly speaking is a process of mapping the stakeholders in a project. It requires analysis and negotiation. So the digital storytelling group under this topic would be the Rainbow Family Tree Project. And what's noteworthy during in this slide is this description on the side, which is at the masthead of the web page, and it mentions a haven for queer digital storytellers and their friends and families. View, create, share, and do your bit to change the world. I believe there's a lot which we can read in that sentence. Let me break that down for you. So basically, it's a social media space created by Sonia Vivian to empower digital queer storytellers, their friends and family. Friends and family in this case are the co-creators of identity of that storyteller. That is also very important. And to view, create, and tell their stories. And story in this case is a condensed and cohesive version of their identity, and do their bit to change the world. The stories not only empower the storytellers, but also stand to challenge gender stereotypes in place. So it is not just about providing a safe haven for people to tell their stories. It is also aimed at bringing about bigger changes in policy making, especially. So in that case, it is a digital activist growth. It is also important to map your audience. According to Vivian, she claims that the Rainbow Family Tree Project members went through deep and reflective process to map out their audience. Now, when we talk about network publics, which is the source of the concept of network identity work, it usually boils down to two kind of audience, according to Hogan. Advocates, to those who we want to present an idealized front, and opponents who may find this front problematic. Because let's just take it in your case. If you type anything on social media, you probably have a certain audience on your mind, but you don't know who else could be reading. You may not have them on your mind, or maybe you would not want them to read that, or they might find it problematic. and sometimes misunderstandings do happen. And that's in the simplest of the case, because the context is collapsed, you're performing, but you don't know who in front of which audience you're performing, you just don't know. And similar in this case. Mapping the public and claiming ownership of the digital story actually help the storytellers to put aside concerns for those people who may not like the front and help them to consolidate their own self-representation. And this is where ownership of the project really helps. If storytellers don't identify with their contribution to their project, they wouldn't claim any ownership to it. That's what Vivian claims, which defeats the whole purpose of network identity work, and it's nothing more than token network consultation, and that's it. It's not network identity work because they need to identify with them, otherwise just storytellers just takes over. At the end of the day, it's all about feeling proud of the end result. And there's also always an asymmetry between participant, storyteller, and the facilitator, the person who is trying to present that story. And this should not always be seen in terms of power dynamics, but according to Vivian, in context of digital storytelling, mutual regards for participant knowledge of cultural landscape and tactical media knowledge of the facilitator goes a long way. So in simple words, the storyteller has more knowledge of their culture, and a storyteller and the facilitator has more knowledge of the way of presenting it, how do we present that, and knowledge of editing and storytelling. If they hold each other in mutual regard, that really meets the purpose of network identity work. On that website, I've also noticed there is a downloadable how to make a digital story guidebook by Rainbow Family Tree. And this is actually a downloadable PDF format, a manual for those storytellers who may not be computer literate. So I think this is created by Vivian herself, and she presents the how to step-by-step of making their own digital story. And they don't really have to be storytellers, and this explains the definition of what are digital stories, how do I make one, and why would I want to make one, giving them enough reasons. So this bridges the gap between the storyteller and the facilitator, which is very important. And this is a couple of references. Now for tutorial, using your laptop, smartphone, or tablet, just visit this website, rainbowfamilytree.com. Pick any digital story and try and assess stakeholders and audience for that particular storyteller. To make it easier, the audience can be further subdivided as advocates and opponents, which I've already talked about. Stakeholders may include family, close friends, etc. It's a long and iterative process, but I guess in 5 minutes you can just get kind of feel that what storytellers actually go through while imagining their audience.
And you can play some of the videos.